Every story is a door. You came here because there's a door calling your name. The orb sees everything. It knows what you need. It has chosen. I only retell. Real or fiction? I won't say. You only need to find meaning for yourself. Listen. Tonight, the orb trembles with a cold and restless light. It has shown me something, a letter written by a dying man to the version of himself he can never reach again. Before I reveal what the orb has unveiled, let me ask you 3 questions. If you held $2.3 billion in your hands, but no one alive cared whether you breathed or not, would you call that wealth? If your child grew into a man without ever learning the shape of your face, would you call that sacrifice or abandonment? And the most dangerous question: if you could speak to yourself at 40, what truth would you deliver, even if it shattered everything you believed? Tonight the orb tells the story of Richard M., a man who escaped an ordinary life, built an extraordinary empire, and discovered that the price of everything was everyone. Stay with me. This story may already be yours. Richard M. was born in 1946 in a small, quiet town outside Columbus, Ohio. His father carried mail through rain and snow for 30 years. His mother taught 3rd graders how to read. They were decent people who expected a decent life for their son. And Richard delivered exactly that. Law school. A small firm. A house with a white fence and a mortgage that would take 25 years to pay. He married Catherine, auburn hair, green eyes, and a warmth that made every room feel smaller and safer. At 38 they had a son, Daniel, a boy with his mother's gentle face. Every morning, the same stale coffee. The same grey highway. The same desk beneath the same flickering light. Every evening, the same quiet dinner. The same television noise filling the space where conversation should have been. Richard was not unhappy. That would have been easier. He was nothing. A man slowly becoming invisible to himself. At 39 he began waking at 3 a.m. Lying beside Catherine, staring at a ceiling he had memorized down to every crack. One night, he whispered into that darkness, "Is this all I was made for?" On the morning of his 40th birthday, Richard sat in his car in the parking lot of his law firm. He did not go inside. He sat there for 2 hours, hands on the wheel, and wept. Not because something terrible had happened, but because nothing ever would. 3 weeks later, he walked into his manager's office and said 2 words. "I quit." No savings worth counting. No connections. No plan except a refusal to surrender to the ordinary. He had been reading about a new thing called the Internet. 1986. Most people dismissed it as a toy. Richard saw what they could not, a world about to be reborn. When he told Catherine, she stood in the kitchen doorway and asked one question. "What about Daniel?" He said, "Everything I do from now on is for Daniel." His father called him a fool. His mother cried. His closest friend Tom sat across from him in a bar and said, "You are about to ruin your life." Richard listened to every warning. Then he placed a single suitcase in the back of a rusted Toyota and drove toward California alone. Everyone who loved him said he was making a terrible mistake. They were right. And they were wrong. That is the cruelest truth of this story. California was not kind to Richard. 3 years of ramen noodles and 4 hours of sleep on a mattress that smelled like regret. 2 companies that failed before they learned to breathe. But Richard possessed something rare. He was not afraid of failure because he had already tasted something worse, the certainty of a life without meaning. That empty ceiling at 3 a.m. followed him everywhere. It was his fuel. In 1991, his third company found ground. Enterprise software, invisible to the public, indispensable to corporations. By 95, 50 million in revenue. By 2000, over 200 million. By 2005, Richard M. stood on the cover of Forbes. 3 companies, 1,400 employees, a Manhattan penthouse, a name the world respected. Journalists called him fearless. Speakers quoted him. Universities built courses around his decisions. But no magazine ever asked, at what cost? No interview ever noticed that behind the empire, a quieter structure was collapsing. And by the time Richard finally looked back, there was nothing left to save. Now I must tell you what the world never saw. Year 1 in California. Catherine called every evening. Richard answered, most nights. Year 3, she called twice a week. He was always somewhere else. Year 5, once a month. Year 8, she called one final time. Her voice was steady, like a woman who had already finished grieving. She said, "Daniel asked me today, does he have a father?" The divorce papers came on a Tuesday. Richard signed them on a Wednesday. He did not ask for custody. He told himself it was better for the boy. The truth, he no longer knew how to be a father. He had unlearned it, one missed call at a time. Daniel grew up in Ohio, with his mother's love and his father's absence. He played baseball. He graduated. He never called Richard. And Richard never called him. In 2003, Richard's mother died. He was in Tokyo, closing a deal worth $80 million. He sent flowers. 7 months later, his father followed. Richard flew to the funeral and stood in the back row, a stranger in the town where he was born. And Tom, his best friend since childhood. In 2010, Richard searched for him. He found an obituary. Tom died of cancer in 2008. Richard never knew. $2.3 billion. and the most expensive silence in the world. In the final weeks of his life, Richard asked the nurse for a pen and paper. His hand shook. The cancer had consumed nearly everything. But the words had been waiting decades to be written. Dear Richard at 40, I write to you from 33 years in your future. I am in a hospital room that costs more per night than your old monthly salary. The view of Manhattan is beautiful. No one is here to see it with me. You want to know, do I regret leaving? No. I do not regret chasing the dream. What I regret is the lie I chose to believe. The lie that said, you must choose between the dream and the people you love. That was never true. I could have called Catherine every night. 5 minutes. I could have flown home for Daniel's baseball games. 1 weekend a month. I could have held my mother's hand when she closed her eyes. I could have answered Tom when he still had time. I had the money. I had the jet. I had the freedom. I did not have the wisdom to see that none of it mattered without them. So hear me. Build everything. Chase every ambition. But keep 20% for the people who give the other 80 its meaning. 20%. Tonight, I would give back every dollar, every headline, every empire. To hear Daniel, my son, say the word Dad. Just once. Richard M. died on a Wednesday as the first sunlight moved slowly across the hospital floor. No hand held his. No voice whispered goodbye. The obituaries celebrated his genius, his companies, his billions. Not one of them mentioned the letter. But the lesson of his life was never in the headlines. It was always in the silence between them. The lesson is not, do not chase your dreams. Chase them with everything you have. The lesson is not, stay small and safe. Richard was right to leave. The lesson is this: you do not have to walk alone to walk far. The lie that ambition demands isolation is the most expensive lie ever told. 80 and 20. Remember those numbers. They may save what money never can. But there is one more thread left in this story. After his death, Richard's attorneys revealed something no one expected. He left his entire fortune, every cent of $2.3 billion, to a single person. Not a charity. Not a foundation. One name that no member of his family had ever heard. Who was this person? What connection did they have to a man who died alone? That mystery belongs to another night. Now, before the darkness returns, I leave you with this. Look at your life as it stands tonight. Who are you forgetting while you chase what you believe matters most? Call them. Not tomorrow. Tonight. Before the cost becomes something you cannot pay.